Mr. Doherty.
Here.
Mr. Feldbush.
Here.
Mr. Hughes.
Here.
Mr. Kemmerer.
Here.
Mr. Kozar.
Here.
Mr. Liberoni.
Here.
Mr. Malloy.
Here.
Mr. Reed.
Here.
9 present.
Gentlemen, once you take your hands off, leave them off in the building. Thank you.
Oh, I don't think so.
I was going to take a knee.
Okay, sorry for running late. A lot of stuff going on, as you can see. Visitors comments, do you have any? A lot of visitors. Yeah, this is your only shot to really say something, if you have something to say.
Well, Lori, you had contacted Mr. Chaplin. Okay, go ahead.
Whatever you want to do. It's tough.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Maureen Shaw. For the past 7 years, I have been honored to serve as the majorette instructor for the Derry Area Marching Band and a substitute teacher in the Derry Area School District. During my time here, I have grown the majorette squad, choreographed numerous routines for the marching band, reintroduced an indoor performance group, created a feeder program for the majorette program, and assisted with the band picnic and other duties asked of me. Before that, as a parent of a Derry Area Marching Band and Derry Area student, I served as the secretary and president of the Cheerleading Booster Organization, the secretary of the basketball organization, and helped with several committees for the marching band boosters. Several months ago, 2 band parents began to use their positions in the booster organizations to make false accusations towards me. In February, I was informed that one of the women had met with Mr. Curry regarding this issue. Shortly after Mr. Long became involved, on May 19th, I was told my job was being reposted and I was not given the opportunity to finish my contract, leaving my girls with months of no coach. The following are 5 key points of this case. Although there was no evidence to support any of these accusations, out of respect for my administrators and for Mr. Long, I willingly complied with his request to provide all evidence to refute their accusations. 2, although these women are booster officers, they do not speak for the entire booster organization. And in fact, the other officers have resigned as a result of their behavior, and several letters have been written to Mr. Long from band parents expressing disapproval in the way the organization has been handled and this situation has been handled. 3, this is a case of 2 disgruntled parents, nothing more. In removing me, the administration is sending a message to parents that with false accusations and persistence, they can have a coach fired anytime they are displeased with their actions. You are also sending a message to your coaches that they are not able to trust their administration to protect them from the constant threat of being falsely accused or the negative impact on their personal reputation that accompanies such accusations. 4, I was told that my involvement with the booster organization was unprofessional. However, it is they who involved themselves in my job, the job I was commissioned by my band director and this administration to do. The very same job that all past instructors before me will testify to doing. Also, the boosters recently sent an email stating that they are not affiliated with the school. That being said, I believe it is unwarranted for the administration to involve themselves in this matter and unjust for them to punish me for anything relating to or resulting from this matter. Last, most coaches come into a situation expecting their players or the people trying out to already have the necessary skills to be on their team. The band staff, students, and parents can all confirm that I did not simply serve as a coach. In order to grow the band in this majorette program, I donated countless hours of free time to teach the girls to twirl. In doing so, this band has greatly benefited through the acquisition of many new students that otherwise may not have afforded the luxury of baton or dance lessons, and therefore would not have been able to be part of organizations here at Derry, such as your marching band. In conclusion, I have been committed to instilling a love and respect for twirling, along with the honor that comes with proudly serving as marching band members and representatives of this school district and its teams. I have been a loyal and productive member of this school district and have encouraged others to do so as well. I am respectfully asking you to recognize my efforts, first, by not allowing these accusations to further damage my reputation, and second, by allowing me to remain in the position that I have held in the highest regard for the past 7 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Stahl. Very much. Any other comments, further comments? Seeing none? Do you have any kind of presentation?
Sir, we've got Mr. Collier.
All right, Joe.
Do you want to wait till we get to that part of the budget? Or do you want to just go? Okay. Okay, we passed our tentative budget back on May 21st, and there have been changes that we've made in our budget since that time. I'm going to review those changes, and then if you have any questions, we're glad to answer those.
So, can you full screen that? You mind?
Down to the bottom right, Jeff. Down by the minus button, it's a view show. Bottom right. Up, up, left. By the minus, plus minus.
Yeah, I did.
Right, you got it.
That's why we have text.
We have to do something, sorry. No, he doesn't want to do that.
Perfect, thank you.
No, how do I, just need to answer it. Okay. Okay. Our changes since the tentative budget. Our tentative budget was approved at $38,294,706. We've had special education students and other students either move out of the district or be brought back into the district or graduate. We've reviewed those from our tentative budget, and we made changes to those. Centerville parcel change, we saved about $27,000. I apologize. We had Clairview enrollment change in the life skills area of about $75,000. We've had an increase in our emotional support for our cyber charter school of about another $17,550. Our emotional support, our artistic support, and our learning support from Marikey, News Story, Works Every. So we adjusted our budget to reflect people who have graduated and moved back into the district or moved out of the district. In addition to that, we had an accounting change. When we did our tentative budget, we did not know at that time from PDE what the Esser's CARES money, what the account number was. So I put an account number in there, and under Grandview Instructional Salaries and Benefits, what I'm showing here is, this is a correction of the accounting of it. We're taking it out of that account and we're putting it into the funding source of 986. We just found out within the last week or so what these funding sources were. In addition to that, the state is giving us $256,000 in, again, federal money from the Emergency School Health and Safety Grant. So that $256,000, we had to put that into our budget. We are currently working on, as a matter of fact, we just recently, within the last day or so, submitted are planned for about 198,000 of that. This budgetary reserve account of 5,900, 990, 987, that's kind of a holding spot for it. Once this budget gets approved, then we'll come back to you and we'll move those into the actual accounts that we're gonna spend the money in. But we had to include that in the budget so you know it was there. So those were changes to our expenditures. It was a net change of about $101,000, $546. Again, some of that, the money, 399,000 and 256, I'm sorry, the 419,000 and the 256 is federal monies that's coming in because of COVID-19. Now, on the revenue side, there was a slight change in our homestead property tax. You'll be passing a motion on that tonight. I believe it's like $198 is what will appear on the your tax duplicate. It'll show up as a credit of $2,100 and some dollars on your tax, and that will reduce your property taxes by that 190. I'm pretty sure it's 198 and some change. So that 615 is just a matter of changing the revenue amount that's coming from the gambling dollars and then reducing the property tax to offset that. Also, our basic subsidy and our special education subsidy, the governor's budget had an increase in there for us, but because of COVID-19 and all the changes that when the final state passed the budget, our subsidy was level funded, so I had to reduce the basic subsidy and special education subsidy, and you can see those amounts there. This is the revenue side of what I was talking about already, that stimulus for ESSER's CARES subsidy. So we've taken it out of the 8514 number that I had in there. Now the real number is 8741,986. So that's kind of just an accounting change. And then the additional money we got from the 10 until now that is the 256,000. We put that in under the federal revenue account 8749,987. Okay, unfortunately, all these changes, and we've gone over these slides before, so I'm just going to roll to this last page here. We were able to not change the millage increase. The recommendation was 2 mills, and even with those changes, what we did was that we changed the need for fund balance. The need for fund balance was, let me go back to that slide, I apologize. And by the way, you all have copies of this. This has also been posted on, or will be posted on our website. You can see here under the fund balance source, 1,560,000 if our fund balance is being plugged in. Last year we plugged in 1,442,000. So even with those changes, the need for a 2 mil tax increase is still there. So our overall budget will go up 1.8%. And what that means to the average taxpayer in Derry School District would be $24.58 in new taxes for next year. Anyhow, those are the changes that we've had from the tentative budget to the final. We had the preliminary budget, we had the presentation back in April, we passed the tentative budget in May, and now this, and all those again are on our website, and this is the budget that we're asking you to approve this evening. I'd like to thank Eric and Scott, tremendous help with this, as well as all of our other administrators that have worked on this here. One of the driving forces, as we've talked many times before, it's been our special education costs, our cyber charter school costs, our retirement costs, transportation costs, are items that are driving this budget. We had to cut back a lot of our estimates on our local revenues this year because we believe our property tax collections will go down, we believe our income tax collections will go down, and we've reduced those based upon an estimate at this time. We're not sure how much they're going to go down, but they're definitely going to go down. Fortunately, this year, our budget's being propped up by those 2 federal subsidies that we're getting, and those are 1-year monies that next year, hopefully, there's you know, the issues with COVID are taken care of. Hopefully we have a vaccine. Hopefully we, our economy's back together, and hopefully our local taxes are coming back. There are, I'll be honest, there are a lot of unanswered questions. This is in 36, 37 years, this is one of the hardest budgets we had to work with because there's so many unknown things. Normally, we always have the state budget that's unknown. Now we know what the state's coming, but we don't know what's coming from the locals. We don't even know for sure yet what all of our actual costs are because we're still working on how we're gonna open up our schools, how often we have to clean, things such as plexiglass or glass in front of counters. There are costs that we're gonna incur this year that we haven't even thought of yet, that we're just going through. So, unfortunately, that's where we are, and that's our recommendation for the board.
Thanks, Joe. And I also want to tell you guys thanks. I know that it's tough. You've got to go hard work in this thing this year. It's very difficult. Appreciate your work. You started well. Any other questions for Mr. Cluter? Being none.
Joe, just for me, if you can just dumb it down, because it's my first time looking at a lot of numbers. So our operating budget is 38.3, is that number, 38,396,000?
Yes.
So what's our, I guess, what's our deficit then we're running for this upcoming school year?
1,000,005. Let me go to that revenue one, I'll show you again. Bear with me here a second.
That's all right.
We'll get to the right, there are a ton of slides there, I want to get to the right slide for you. Okay, if you look here, the 38, it's something wrong. Here we go. Thanks. Apologize there. We have 1,560,000 of our fund balance, Sean, we're plugging in. Okay, that's about 4% of our budget. Historically, we've plugged that 3 to 4% into our budget because historically, we've only spent 96 to 97% of our budget. We spend about, on average, the last 5 years, I believe that number's about 96.5%. So we're hoping that we don't use that fund balance, but I'll be honest with you, there are a lot of estimates in there for this year's cost, but what we're plugging in, that 1,560,000 of our fund balance. We're estimating at the end of this year, we're gonna have 4 million, maybe a little bit more ending fund balance. But next year, we're probably gonna use more of that fund balance up because of things like, for example, just one thing, for example, our transportation subsidy this year, because we didn't have transportation the whole year, but we had to continue to pay by contract 45% of our contract price for 169 days, even though we only won 126 days. But we can apply for subsidy for the 169 days, but our actual cost is a little bit less, thus adding to why we didn't spend fund balance this year, why we're adding a little bit more to it. But next year, that subsidy that we normally get, about $1.1 million of subsidy, that's going to be lower next year because of what happened this year. Exactly what that number is, we don't know exactly yet, but it's going to be reduced. So anyhow, that's just one thing that will affect that.
No, that's good, thank you.
Anybody else?
Any other questions? I'm going to leave that up for now in case you have another question.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Joe, appreciate it. We'll move on with the meeting. Motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting in June 4, 2020.
So moved.
Mr.
I'll
Dodd.
second.
Mr. Malloy, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the payment of the following bills.
So moved.
Second. And, Mr. Reed, thank you. I was trying to figure out where you were. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Move personnel. Motion to accept the resignation of Robin Hoon, Grandview Noontime Cafeteria Aide, effective June 7, 2020. Motion, please.
So moved.
Mr. Feldboy, second.
Second.
Mr. Malloy, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to accept the resignation of Brian Clausen as class advisor, effective at the end of the 1920 school year. Motion, please.
So moved.
Mr. Reed, second.
Second.
Cameron, thank you. Questions, comments? I'll make a quick comment. I think you did a terrific job this year, along with the senior class, and all you guys had to do, Francis as well. So we'll miss Brian in that position. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to accept the resignation of John Belega for the purpose of retirement as a substitute custodian effective September 1st.
So moved.
Mr. Malloy.
Second.
Huge.
Mr. Hughes, thanks. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to accept the resignation of Cheryl Benson, Secretary to the Food Service Director for the purpose of retirement effective December 31st, 2020. Motion, please.
So moved, Feldboy.
Feldboy, second.
Second.
Mr. Reed, thanks. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to accept the resignation of Michelle Macy, High School Guidance Secretary for the purpose of retirement effective October 30, 2020. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Hughes, Mr. Reed, second.
Sure.
All right. Questions, comments?
Mr. Connell, if I may, Michelle, just like Brian, and anytime we have a resignation in the district, it's awful and, it's difficult to see our friends and our coworkers leave. But Michelle's been dedicated to the district for many years. She has done a lot more than just what her job, as a guidance secretary entails. When I met with her and she submitted her letter of recommendation, or resignation, she said that, it was certainly time for her to retire, but she's going to sorely miss coming to Derry every day. And I would add that it'll be just as equally difficult for us to see her retire. But I'm really happy, anytime somebody retires, I'm more than happy to celebrate with them. So we wish Michelle nothing but the best.
Mr. Craddock, I would like to say too, because I've worked with Michelle from the first day she came here, and for those of you who've been around a long time will remember Mrs. McDonald, Laura, Ms. McDonald was the guidance counselor before. She was fantastic as well. And I remember everyone saying, when Mrs. McDonald leaves, we're gonna be in trouble, we're gonna be in trouble. And not to take anything away from the work that she did, but when Michelle Macy came in there, she took it and she ran with it and took it to a new level. And I can't, not only did she do her own job well, anytime we had a new secretary coming into a guidance position, she was willing to help. And anytime they had questions, if an administrator wasn't ready, they could call Michelle, and Michelle would help them out. So, in addition to that, I'd like to talk about Ms. Shirley Benson in the cafeteria. She's done a swell job as well for the district, and I'm sure Gwen's going to miss her whenever she leaves as well.
Thanks, Joe. Any others? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under employment, number 1, we're going to table, so we won't be reading that one. Number 2 then, motion to approve a change in status for Robert Dunlap from a 7-hour high school afternoon custodian to an 8-hour high school daylight cafeteria custodian, effective June 29, 2020. Motion.
So moved. Second.
Feldbush?
Yeah.
Gozer? Is that right?
Yes.
Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the change of status for Colleen Chamberlain from an 8-hour middle school afternoon custodian to an 8-hour middle school afternoon lead custodian, effective June 29, 2020. Motion, please.
So moved.
Dockery, Mr. Reed, second.
Second.
Thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve a change in status for Jason Gundiker from an 8-hour high school gym midnight custodian to an 8-hour high school pool midnight custodian, effective June 29, 2020.
So moved.
Mr. Lloyd, second.
Second, Feldboy.
Thank you, Mr. Feldboy. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under athletics, Motion to approve the athletic health and safety plan for student athletes to return to voluntary workouts June 29, 2020, and for the administration to adapt the plan as new information and requirements are made available. Motion, please.
So moved.
Cosar?
Yes.
Second?
I'll second.
Mr. Feldwood, thank you. Questions, comments? Mr. Miller, anything?
No, that plan will continue to change as new information is made available. It is important to note that plan is only for voluntary workouts, has no bearing on the in-season, workouts yet, so.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are also going to table letter B and move on to C. Motion to approve the following volunteer coaches for the 2021 school year, pending receipt of all necessary clearances and documentation. TJ Balega football, Levi Humberger football, and Josh Black
So
football.
moved.
Mr. Malloy, second.
Second. Mr. Hughes.
Mr. Reed, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Under business affairs, motion to approve the property tax installment resolution. Motion, please.
So moved. Feldbush.
Feldworth, second.
I'll second.
Doc, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the fund, this is roll call, correct?
Correct.
This will be a roll call. vote. Motion to approve the final budget for school year commencing July 1, 2020 and ending June 30, 2021, with revenues, unreserved fund balance, and other sources available in the amount of $40,835,756, and total expenditure in the amount of $38,396,252. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Dockery, second.
Second.
Hughes, thank you. Roll call vote.
Mr. Krynock,
Yes.
Mr. Dougherty,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Kemmerer,
No.
Mr. Kozar,
Yes.
Mr. Liberoni,
No.
Mr. Malloy,
No.
Mr. Reed.
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no.
Passes. Motion to approve a resolution levying millage for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2020, and ending June 30, 2021, at 91.8 mils, based on an assessed value of 100% under provision of the Pennsylvania School Code of 1949, as amended. 1920 millage was 89.8. Just roll call. You have a motion, please?
So moved.
Mr. Dougherty, second.
Second.
Mr. Cosar, thank you. Roll call vote, Mr. Chapel?
Mr. Dougherty,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Hughes,
Yes.
Mr. Kemmerer,
No.
Mr. Kozar,
Yes.
Mr. Liberoni,
No.
Mr. Malloy,
No.
Mr. Reed,
Yes.
Mr. Krynock.
Yes.
6 yes, 3 no.
Passes as well. Motion to approve the homestead, farmstead resolution. $198.42.
So moved, Hughes.
Hughes. Mr. Reed, second, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the tuition agreements with New Story Schools for the 2020 extended school year. Motion, please.
So moved, Feldbush.
Feldwood, second. Mr. Moore, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to award the bid for servers, storage, and installation to CCL Technologies at a cost of $64,214 using capital reserve funds. Motion, please.
So moved.
Cosar, second.
Second.
Is that Sean?
Yes.
Chairman, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to approve the revised panel of physicians. Motion, please.
So moved.
Mr. Reed, second.
Second.
Cosar, thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We do have an addendum. It'll be under business as well. Motion to approve the transfer of $6,000 from the Darien Area School District to the Darien Area School District Foundation for the capital campaign feasibility study.
So
Motion,
moved.
Mr. Malloy.
Second.
To you, thank you. Questions, comments? that's right, I'm sorry, public comment on that, I'm totally forgot about that, since it's not on your agenda. Being none, sorry about that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Mitch. Now we'll move on to committee reports, JOC committee,
Yes, I do have a few things here.
okay?
We met last evening, and just, we approved entering into a St. Vincent Graduate Fellowship Program at a cost of $16,890.60. And I'll explain more as I get down through here. And we approved a motion for Miss Allie Richter as a graduate fellow through the St. Vincent Graduate Fellowship Program. She's a special ed person, okay? And with that cost as a fellowship, it saved us quite a bit of money from hiring a full-time teacher for that position. A couple sad notes here, due to drop in enrollment in our woodworking technology program. This upcoming school year, we will curtail that program to a half-time status and eliminate it at the end of the 2021 school year. It's something we hated to do, but the enrollment has decreased quite a bit over the last several years. It's been in probation status for a little while now. On a bright note, we had one of our students, Ian Gent, enrolled in EWCTC's computer engineering program, received recognition for scoring the highest in Pennsylvania on both the Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint MOS certification exams. He has been invited and plans to attend the national championship, which has been postponed now until next summer, held in Orlando, Florida. Ian has achieved the highest certification possible in both Microsoft Office 2016 and 2019, and has earned 16 Microsoft certifications so far. So congratulations to Ian Jen.
Thank you, Mr. Cozart. Anything you want to add to the IU board, Mr. Feldbush?
The report was in with the enclosures. I would like to say on next month, on the 28th, there's a special meeting for the board on health and safety plans for reopening, Fairview, et cetera. So maybe some groundwork for here as well, maybe.
Yes. Thanks. Adams Memorial Library Board, Mr. Chairman, anything this month?
Curbside service is doing great, so if you guys want to get books, you can. The library is going to start opening up by appointment only, so they can still do their social distancing, but if you want to go in and browse, you can get in touch with the library and actually go check out books. Summer reading program is still going to be a thing. The actual board meeting for the library board that we're supposed to have in July, we are going to postpone though until a later date, so we get a little more stuff figured out. Keep reading.
Mr. Beasley, anything? Oh, you don't do that anymore, huh? I'm sorry, Ron. It is, it's a habit. Anything from the foundation?
Just that the foundation board met actually yesterday, and one of the exciting things that they're moving forward on is the capital campaign feasibility study. It's being paid for by a private donor, the foundation, and thanks to the school board this evening, is paying for part of it as well. That campaign committee is hoping this feasibility study, which will take 3 to 5 months, and then they'll be getting a report back and moving forward then with our capital campaign for the foundation.
Thanks, Bill. Building and grounds, I don't have anything more. Kevin? No? Policy committee, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Cameron?
No report.
Athletic committee, Mr. Miller?
A brief report, we met on June 16th, gave an update with regard to the stadium field project. The sod should be going down within the coming days. We discussed the status of fall sports and the athlete health and safety plan, athletic staffing, the Trojan Spear organization, and branding.
Thank you. And last but not least, Westmoreland County Committee on Legislative Action. I don't have any.
They have not met, no report.
No report.
Yeah, I'm gonna be doing that.
Okay, Mr. Curry, time for the superintendent report.
Is this orange?
Hey, Steve, this might go ahead.
All right. So, I wanted to take a few minutes tonight as part of the superintendent's report to kind of talk to you a little bit, to the board and also to those community members. Some of you may be here because you're wondering what we're gonna be doing in the fall with regards to the reopening of school. Just a couple of editorial comments. Things are changing at the state level, and with CDC almost every day. Just this week, we've had 3 new updates from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Some of those updates contradicted things that they were going to ask us to do in the Secretary of Ed's reopening guidance that he gave us just 2 weeks ago. We're also starting to hear a lot of questions being asked at the state legislature, and I don't want to go into the political end of this, but quite frankly, there's a battle going on right now in Harrisburg with the Republican-controlled legislature and a Democratic-controlled governor's office. And so, unfortunately, school districts in Pennsylvania are caught in between that. So frankly, there are days when I think I have this figured out enough that we can move forward, and then news comes out and it totally wipes out everything that we've been thinking about and planning for. So what I want to go over with you today is not really anything with any specifics, but more just to try to reassure everybody that your administration and board are working on making sure that we can effectively, responsibly, maintaining the health, safety, and welfare of our students, reopen school in some form in the fall. It's a moving target right now, and that's just about the easiest way for me to say it. So, with that, let me just kind of go through and highlight some of the things that we're trying to consider. What happened to that thing, Brian? Oh, it helps if you turn it on.
There you go.
I
thought you meant the pointer.
Oh, no.
Pointer.
I had a moment there I could get Joe, right? So anyway, one of the biggest concerns, one of the things we're really working on and trying to consider, and Joe mentioned this, is the additional costs that are going to be potentially rising as a result of our cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting protocols, and we're working on that right now to make sure that we are doing everything the CDC is asking us to do and providing the right equipment for both our custodial maintenance staff as well as for our students and our teaching support staff. We're working on ways that we're going to be able to clean our communal areas every day. Areas such as lobbies, cafeterias, gymnasiums, large group instruction rooms, those types of things. We're looking at ways that we can increase the airflow for better ventilation as the weather permits. If you've been in the second floor of the middle school recently, it gets pretty warm up there at times. But then in the winter time, opening those windows can really cool the place down much more than we need it to. So we're looking at ways that we can accommodate a better airflow in our buildings. We're looking at our deep cleaning weekly. So a little bit later, I'll share with you some of our initial ideas of what that may look like. But we are going to make sure that there is an increased protocol for cleaning the classrooms in those areas on a daily basis. Social distancing. We're looking at appropriate ways to distance between our learners. And this is another area where we're getting conflicting guidance. You know, some areas are saying 6 feet for social distancing. We're starting to hear that there may be some relief to that to 3 feet, but obviously 6 feet of space for social distancing does create us some problems with limited space that we have in classrooms. And I'll get into that a little bit more. So with that recommendation at this point, we're looking at options for what smaller class sizes might look like. Right now, you know, obviously one of the biggest communal areas that we have to be concerned about is our cafeteria, how we serve lunches, how we provide a clean lunchroom in between lunch shifts. There's just a lot of considerations that we have to examine there and to make sure that we're prepared appropriately for that. And also, you know, looking at how we do our transportation and making sure that we're observing the recommended social distancing guidelines on transportation and with the bus, and on our bus seating. And we're working with Smith Bus, our bus contractor, on what that can and may look like. We have the recommendations on temperature scans as part of a health check. You know, obviously with nearly 1,900 students coming into the building, or if it's half of that, we're still talking about 1,000 kids. How can we responsibly make sure that our students' temperatures are being taken or have been taken? We're making sure that we're going to have masks available for use when we have large numbers of learners that could come in contact with each other. You know, right now the guidance is kind of back and forth a little bit about wearing masks in classrooms. I can tell you that I'm really concerned about that. I don't see how kids can be expected to wear a mask all day and not be fit, especially kindergartners and first graders. So, but one of the things that is pretty clear is that we can ask our kids and our staff to wear masks as they're changing classes when they might be in those common areas together. Working with our kids and I think we've all learned how to, you know, wash our hands now and you know, those types of things, but we'll continue to increase and reinforce that with our students and staff. And then again, of course, mandatory exclusion for symptomatic learners and staff. You know, one of the big questions that we have right now is, you know, if and when we do have a student or a staff member test positive for COVID, what's our response going to be? And we're still working on that. And then what number of kids or students, you know, are test positive that cause us to need to consider shutting the school down? Those are all things that we're trying to work through. We have a large need for training and understanding and compliance, and that goes through every one of the 4 groups up there: our teachers and our staff, our student learners, our parents and community, and even our third-party contractors. We have a lot of third-party vendors that we contract to do work with us in the district and to help support the things that we do. And obviously, during that time, they may be coming to Derry, and we have some expectations that are different than, you know, another school district that they may work in. So, again, those are things that we're working through and planning for. Right now, there are at least 3 different options for learning models that are being thrown around across the state. We're working on making sure we have plans for all 3 of these. Okay, brick and mortar, remote learning, and hybrid. And really seamlessly, we should be able, we're hopeful that with the plans that we have in place that we'll be able to seamlessly move as the collar phases may or may not change throughout, you know, as with the Department of Health. So really it's the green, red, yellow mindset there. One of the issues we have with brick and mortar right now is that all students can return. One of the things that we would like to say, and I want to clarify this right off the bat, this is our desire, is to get our kids and our students and our staff back just as it was on March the 11th or 12th and get them back to school, because we know that that's the best environment for our kids to learn in, and that's our greatest desire. However, that's a best case scenario at this point in time, but based on the social the distancing guidelines and all of the things, we're limited by space, and we're not sure we have enough open classrooms and/or teachers to fully return to brick and mortar if the current PDE guidelines for health and safety stay in place. Basically, the guidelines are very clear about the social distancing and all of those types of things, and we're trying to take that into consideration at this point. Remote learning, that's similar to what we did this spring, with an increased rate. Obviously, we've learned a lot since this was dropped on us on March the 13th. But we're looking at a similar situation as to what we had in the spring. If we have to go to remote learning, this is worst case scenario for us. But if we have to, we would have an increased rigor in attendance, work requirements, face-to-face time with online with the teachers. Instruction under that scenario could be synchronous or asynchronous, meaning that it could be right at the same time with the teacher instructing, or it could be in a mode that the teachers are uploading some information to Google Classrooms, that type of thing. We will make sure we accommodate all students who need a device, okay? That was one of the things that we heard very loud and clear, especially from our elementary parents. From a technology standpoint, we did not have the resources available to make Chromebooks available to all of our kids in the elementary school. And that was extremely problematic for us. So one of the things that we're working on, and I'm happy to say, is we're waiting for the final funding for a grant that we just finished yesterday and submitted. Joe mentioned it. That will be able to help us purchase the Chromebooks we need to make sure that all of our kids have access to technology. Under a hybrid model, this is a weekly blend of instruction in both brick and mortar and a brick and mortar setting and remote learning. And again, I'm prefacing this by saying this is just initial thoughts. There's nothing concrete or in writing with this, but we would have to divide the learners into two groups, A and B, that would be here opposite days. This would allow us to accommodate the social distancing, but also to be able to continue the instruction on a daily basis. Learners would be grouped by family unit, and the reason for that is pretty clear. From a transportation standpoint, we can get the families here. We have child care concerns, all types of things with planning for families, to be able to get their kids here. So the students would have 2 days of instruction in school and 2 days of remote learning with their assigned groups. All students would have remote learning, for example, on a Wednesday, and the reason that we would do that is to allow for the building to be totally disinfected and deep cleaned before the next group of kids comes in. This is just a schematic of a possible way that could work. We would have Group A here on Monday and Tuesday, Group B here on Thursday and Friday, with everybody doing remote learning on the off days. Transportation is another issue. Regular bus transportation would be provided to and from the learner's home, just as we do now. Transportation will be provided between the EWCTC and Dairy area, just as we do now. We would continue to be able to run our activity buses to transport our learners home after practices, tutoring, 21st century learning opportunities, those types of things. One of the big problems that arises with this, though, we've been pretty lenient on issuing bus passes for alternate stops. But you can imagine that when if we have to start bringing one group one day, Monday and Tuesday, and another group on Thursday and Friday, trying to make alternative stops is going to be extremely limited, if at all. We're going to have situations that we know are good for learning, that we're just not going to be able to do until we're up and running 100%. Some of those types of things. We have over 300 school volunteers in the Dairy Area School District. It's one of the things that I'm the proudest of, is the number of people who come in to help us do a variety of things, from making copies all the way to assisting with children in a classroom. Under this plan, we would not be able to have those folks in the building at this time. Classroom visitors, we have police officers and those types of things come in to talk to our kids about careers. Those are all items that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do. I don't know how we're going to do it, but I guess we're looking at back to school and Meet Your School nights virtually, assemblies, concerts, and any activities that require members of the public into the school building. So we're going to be extremely limited on the types of things that we could do. So in conclusion, we're hoping for the best, but we'll be prepared for the worst. So I have a letter that I'd like to read in closing that's going to go on our webpage at Facebook that's going out to the community tomorrow. I'm going to read it very quickly. I think all of the board members, Joe, would you make sure all the board members get a copy of that?
We have, we do.
So I don't think that I got one down. I didn't get them down to the four gentlemen down here, Bill and Bill.
Give them mine too. Joe, you're good after that table.
So this is how the letter will read, and again, this will be posted tomorrow on our Facebook page and on our website. Dear parents, guardians of the Dairy Area School District, one common question we all have is, what will school look like in 2020, 2021 for the students, teachers, and staff of the Dairy Area School District? I want to assure you that the district administration is working diligently on plans. As you can imagine, there are many moving parts to be considered as we look for ways to assure the health, safety, and welfare of the entire district family. We believe a return to normal school operations is critical to the learning of our students. Our goal is to develop a plan that is safe, realistic, feasible, and finally, as normal as possible. Our planning will and does take into consideration the guidance from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, the Center for Disease Control, and local public health officials. The current reopening planning guidance from the Pennsylvania Department of Education contains several considerations that create significant hurdles that we must find ways to overcome. Many of these considerations limit our ability to return to normal school operations. Currently, we are working on plans to provide a hybrid model of instruction in the fall. This model will provide a combination of face-to-face instruction and synchronous online learning that will allow us to follow the current social distancing guidelines we are receiving from officials. One of the biggest concerns expressed by our families this spring, especially at the elementary level, was the lack of technology. We are currently in the process of assuring that appropriate technology will be available for all students of the district. Lack of resources should not and will not be a barrier to learning for any student. As I mentioned earlier, our sincere desire is to return to school, to normal school operations. If we are able to do so, we can have those plans developed quickly as we open anew every August. That's something we do all the time. We are focusing most of our current planning on the hybrid model, as this requires the most work, the most thought, and consideration for administration, teachers, and families. In closing, I thank you in advance for your patience and support. We realize that the current state of education creates angst for all of us. It is our goal to unveil the final plans for reopening at the July 30th, 2020 Dairy Area Board of Directors meeting. We acknowledge that many are looking for immediate answers to what school will look like. But to rush the planning and preparation just to put out a short-sighted plan that requires multiple revisions will only add to the angst of our school family. And it's signed by Years in Education, myself, Derek Curry. So with that, Mr. Kreinoff, You have my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. Very nice letter too, by the way. Any other concerns of the board?
I just want to say, it's nice to see so many people here. I know I'm kind of new, but thank you guys for all coming. It's really nice to see the community involved. I know some of you guys have reached out to me on Facebook or through my email. Thank you guys for that. I always love hearing from you. I love learning as a new guy. So thank you guys for giving me a chance to hear some of your concerns. Thank you guys for showing up. Please continue to be engaged. It helps.
I agree with that.
Mr. Crono, and Eric, can I get your autograph after the meeting?
Yes, you can. You'll have to make a donation to the Dairy Area School District Foundation.
Okay.
Any other concerns?
I move we adjourn, Mr. President.
I second that.
Good job, Mr. Cozart. Mr. Reed, thank you. All in favor?